Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Female Filmmakers Fuse with Alexa Polar, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Alexa Polar. I'm here with my sidekick, Robin Pabello, and our special, very special guest, Sophia Kiapos. I said that correctly.
You did.
Awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's an honor to meet you in person. I followed you and I've seen the extent of what you've done. It's amazing, and that's why I really wanted to get you here. So before we get to that, starting female filmmakers, which is different than what this is, I wanted to talk about you, the person behind that, the woman behind that, what got you to get there. But I want to know you. Let's start with this very difficult industry. How did you get started? What led you to here?
I was born and raised. I was born and raised here in Los Angeles, so I'm one of those rare Angelinos. And I always had a desire to just be in entertainment ever since I was a small child. And I grew up living on a ranch. My family owned a ranch. And throughout my childhood, almost every weekend, Disney was there shooting, or Nickelodeon. We had Lifetime movies and commercials. So I was, my dad would say, a movie is being shot here on Saturday. And I would, obviously, I was 7 years old. I'd go on the set and be like, wow, this is so cool. And I met some of my favorite Disney stars, from way back when. And I always had this feeling that this was what I was going to do and be a part of, because I grew up in it. And so after graduating high school, I took some time off to really figure out what my purpose was. I had gone to a private school, and 95% of the people in my class went to very prestigious universities, and they were studying to be architects and doctors and lawyers, and I wasn't about that whatsoever. And I felt almost like I had failed, because so many of my classmates were doing incredible things and getting recognized for it. And I had my mom took me on a trip to New York, and we went for a couple of days. And when I was in the city, I went with my mom she got her haircut done in the city. She traveled all the way to New York to get her haircut done. And I went with her, and this guy sat in the salon chair, and he was so poised, and he had amazing posture and a great haircut. Go figure. He suddenly turned around, and I was 18 or 19, and he turned around and he said, "Do you work in entertainment?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, you should, because you have that thing about you." And I'm like, okay. And then he pulls out his card, and that was the first time anybody had ever pulled their card out to me. And he was one of the creative directors at Stella Adler in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And he said, "How long are you in town for?" And I said, "I'm leaving tomorrow." And he said, "Before you leave, come stop by the conservatory. Have you ever been to a conservatory?" I said, "No." Anyways, so long story short, the next day before I got on my plane back to Los Angeles, my mom and I stopped into the conservatory, and it was the first time that I felt I belonged somewhere. It clicked suddenly. The energy just clicked, and I ended up auditioning for to go to one of Adler's programs in New York City, and I got in, and I spent my summer in New York, and I was in a Chekhov intensive course, and I didn't even know what the hell Chekhov was at that point. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I got in. And that was the first time that I had experienced some kind of independence. I was alone in New York City doing something I'd never thought I would ever do, and I was studying one of the greatest playwrights ever to exist.
That's amazing.
And then after I graduated from Adler that summer, I went on and auditioned for a drama school in London called Lambda, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, and I wound up there for another year. So my background really is in theater. Shakespeare, Chekhov, Tennessee Williams, and it was the foundation for everything that I am today, and the kind of work that I gravitate towards and I do create. So after graduating from drama school, I came back to LA. I felt like I was on cloud nine. I knew I was going to get an agent, and like, why wouldn't I? I have all of this training. That doesn't mean anything in Los Angeles. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to double check if I could. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. And coming from New York and London, where training and theater and stage presence actually means something, coming to LA, it's like, okay, cool. Read. Cold read. Audition. Okay, great, next. They don't give you the time. No. So I got an agent, and I auditioned, here and there, and all the roles that I had been cast in were like terrorist's wife. Honestly, the only like bigger things that I had ever been in, I'm not even speaking English.
Wow.
I'm speaking Farsi.
Wow.
Or Arabic. I don't even speak Arabic, but they had me learn Arabic. And roles like the waitress or whore number 2, and that was it. That was all I had ever been considered for. And I came to a point in my life where I knew that this wasn't the track. This wasn't me. This isn't what I was made for. Every human being has a purpose. I fully believe that. And unfortunately, we rely on other human beings to label us and to give us opportunities. And I disagree. I think that we are completely capable in creating opportunities for ourselves and to be the people that we have always been destined to be, So I went on this meditation retreat after I had decided I was going to stop acting, and I spent 10 days with myself in silence, which was extreme, and I'd never done anything like that before. And during those 10 days, I was pulled to a different direction. And as soon as I came back, I'd quit my job. I was nannying at the time. That's the way I paid my bills. And I quit my job, and I started from square one. And I received a phone call just days after I came back from this meditation retreat from a friend of mine that I had gone to school in London with, and she said that she wanted to make a short film and asked for me to help her cast and produce it. I was like, great, this is going to give me something to do. And 3 weeks later, we wound up in Mississippi. We were shooting on location, and just days before the the commencement of the production, my friend, who was acting, writing, and directing and producing, she at that point felt like she couldn't, handle everything. That was her first time, and I give her immense kudos and props because she's killing it right now. But she had felt like it was a lot of weight. And like 2 days before the production, she had said that you're going to direct it. And to make the whole Chekhov thing full circle, it was an adaptation of one of Chekhov's plays, for film. And I was in that play. So that was the full circle. And so we were dealing with a very large budget, named actors that I had only grown up watching on television. Wow. And that was my debut.
Wow.
And it was, I'd never felt more alive, and it was just cosmic. It was like the stars absolutely aligned, and it was like, Sophia, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And I knew at that point that I only wanted to direct and produce, but mostly direct.
That's amazing.
So the film, went into the International Film Festival circuit, and we were in Cannes and Berlin, and we went to some great film festivals, and we got a lot of momentum. And then, of course, people in the industry are like, well, what else? What do you have next? What's going on? And it was a lot for me to just take on that responsibility. I was 24 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And I created my own way. And I started my own production company, and I just started creating. And then so much has, evolved in the last 2 years. But that's how it all started, and it hasn't stopped.
That's amazing. I gotta say, sitting here in front of you, as you're sharing this, okay, I could tell, first of all, you're a very creative being. It comes out of you. It's amazing. And as you're telling this story, and we can hear it, but I'm seeing you, and this is why I'm saying this. I could see you reliving that. I could see that love, that passion, that excitement. How it happened. It was very serendipitous. You were just there at the moment. It was perfect timing. In New York, you're from LA, you get approached by a major company. Like, who hasn't heard of that? It's just amazing. And I could see it in your body and in the way you tell it. And then you get a moment where you feel defeated, depleted. And I see you just drop, And it was amazing to see that in you, because I was there. You took me there in the moment. People listening were taken there, but I saw it, and that's why I want to share it, because it's one of those things that you could tell. We know who you are, and we're gonna know who you are years from now, because of that moment. You had to step away, but it created something better. Does that make sense?
I wholeheartedly, that resonates completely.
And it's amazing, because that's been how long, and you still, if you relive it by sharing it, it's like you're taken back and you go through the whole roller coaster again. Mm-hmm. And I could hear it in your voice, and I could see it in the way your body tells a story, your eyes, your facial expression, and then you drop as soon as you got here to Hollywood, and reality, their reality, because let's correct it, their reality, not ours, hit you. Yeah. And it's like, nope, that's not how we do things. That's great that you're super talented, but, we're going to typecast you, and that's unfortunate. They lost someone that could have been extraordinary, and you still could, but at the same time, you're not an actress anymore. Now you're a director. / producer, more director. Yeah. And it's amazing. They're lost, but our gain, because now you're able to tell the stories the way they should be told.
Thank you.
So it's a good thing. That's an amazing, amazing thing. And thank you so much for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you.
So Is that what brought you to create Female Filmmakers?
It's, of course, like everything is at the end. I'm not at the end of my life, obviously, but at the end of my life, the web that I've created is all gonna make sense. It's like every chapter you enter into is just another part of the weaving of your journey. I of course, that everything that I am and have experienced has obviously led me to Female Filmmakers. I completely lost my train of thought. It's just a lot. I was on my way with a lot of momentum with a feature film. And we were just going into casting for this film. And I almost lost sight of why I was doing everything. And I believe that sometimes that does happen when you're going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Sometimes you just need to sit back and just like view the bigger picture, And I was going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I was speaking at an event, and during my speech, I had found out that there was a fire that erupted at my parents' home, and I was with my dad and my fiance, and when I got back to my parents' ranch, my grandparents had passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I had to stop for a second and remember why I was doing what I was doing. And everyone in my family had gone through their own version of healing, and mine was taking a few steps back, and I had sought out an internship, unpaid, with a production company. I went back to UCLA and took a couple of screenwriting classes, and I really spent like a year incubating myself in like the work and the craft. And I took myself back to a place of remembering, and that was like the best thing that I had decided to do during that time. Because I realized that life is so precious, and it's not the quantity of stories that you tell, it's the ones that have real meaning and depth and experience that are the ones that are going to rise above it all and be remembered by the world. And those are the stories I want to be remembered for. And so in that year of incubation, I felt very alone in my work, and I founded Female Filmmakers just as a support group within the very limited amount of women that I knew. I probably added 15 women into the group when I had first started it. And that was how it was born. And I had always, from the day one when I stepped onto set as a director, I had always told myself, my mantra was, I am doing this for women, and I'm doing this for minorities. I am Iranian and I am Greek, and being an Iranian woman filmmaker is, especially with the year and a half that we've had in our country, it is the greatest honor for me. And I am the possibility of giving women in the Middle East and from Iran a voice in the film industry. And so I really wanted to cultivate a group, unknowingly that it was going to go global, but that was definitely my long-term plan, not knowing it was going to be like 2 years later, but still.
That's amazing.
So, yes, this is Robin. With that being said, which is really funny, that's actually how I met you, was via your Facebook, with female filmmakers, which is how I actually introduced Alexa.
Yes.
So like that came full circle, which was fantastic because I was like, all right, like when I had started out, I was an electrician, and I was like, I just named myself Lady Electric because I was like the only female, and because my name was Robin, automatically it was like, oh, she's a dude. So I, 5'1", $110, walking on to set, and they're like, oh, sweetie, you're in the wrong department. Hair, makeup, and wardrobe over there. And I'm like, I'm an electrician. My name's Robin. I got hired by the gaffer. And it was just kind of like whoops. So like just that being that support group, was a fantastic find for me, which then like I then kept sharing and just kept growing and growing, which also like cultivated more and more women to like reach out and like, even if we didn't know each other, because this is the first time I'm actually physically meeting you, which I'm just like, we know each other. I don't know you, but I know you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that just
No, that's good.
No,
That's
it's
amazing.
great.
And so you started it, and you started with give or take 15.
15.
Where are you at now?
We are in the 5,200 and something.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's like, no, seriously. And that's a, what's the term? Because you didn't pay to get followers. That's a natural, it's got to be said. It's got to be said. It's a...
Well, I think honestly, too, when it comes down to it, is that, I don't remember. I was telling Sophia down in the lobby, like, hey, I know you. I don't remember who introduced me and said, hey, like, you're female, you're a filmmaker. Let's like lift each other up. I'm like, absolutely. Like, what else do you know? Who else do you know? Let's just keep on that going, which is kind of nice because you've got like two different, platforms that are meeting together and just supporting each other. And that to me is the most powerful thing, is like, instead of it being like this faux pas of like, oh, women like want to like put each other down, like obviously that is not the case, and that obviously could have been instilled by someone else. Won't mention who that could be, but regardless, like it's kind of that thing of like, you want to lift each other up regardless, because it's something of a passion that you're sharing with a kinship. So to me, it's just like a full circle thing, yet again, and just this to me is just a true testament of what that is. And
I'm glad that you said that, Robin, because that was my next thing. Is I've seen different groups labeled similar, okay, and it gets very catty, and it's sometimes, and I think it's because the competitive side comes out, right? This is a huge industry. There's tons of films, there's tons of TV shows, there's tons of everything. We should be lifting each other up rather than pushing each other down to get to the top. We're not going to win that way. I mean, it's not, and I don't mean to say win, but we're not going to get far that way. And that's why I like female filmmakers, is because I don't see the cattiness. I do see it very supportive, very uplifting. Someone asks for suggestions, everyone's there to like give suggestions. It's amazing. And I've seen other, on social media, other pages that try to be the same, and unfortunately I don't know what it is. It doesn't always come out the same. Either someone says something negative, and even if someone says something negative on female filmmakers, it's immediately shut down, because it's kind of like, no, I don't think you understood. Like, let's try this again, and it doesn't go beyond that. It doesn't turn into an argument. It's just like, oh, okay, cool, and I think that's important, because you're right. We are in an industry where you were the only Lady Electric. That's why you called yourself that. Yeah. And it's something that we should see more of, and that's my thing too. We're not competing with men. We're not competing, period. We're not competing with each other. It's a huge industry. We should be looked at as equals, and people should hire us for what we are, not for who we are, not for what gender, what anything. It's just, you qualify, perfect. You got the talent, perfect. You're what we need, regardless of if you're female or male. And I think having that page helps us out, because we've been overlooked for a long period of time. females, minorities in general, we've been overlooked. And it's amazing that you started something that is very supportive. It's extremely supportive, and it's great. That's how I found you. It was through Robin, and I loved it. You know, I'm on it all the time, and sometimes I'll join in on conversations, and sometimes I just like something because I can't help, but I like the fact that this person's asking for help. It's an amazing thing, and people are posting things like, hey, I started a book, or hey, I'm going to start my own company, and everyone's like, great, that's awesome. It's not like other pages. I seen something where this other person posted how she started a company, and she put it on similar pages, and other pages were just like, you're doing it wrong. Your page was the only one that was like, that's awesome, keep it up, you know, let us know what you need. It's an amazing
difference between, and I made this distinction just recently between the yes but and the yes and, you know, and our group is about anding people, not the butting,
Exactly.
you know, and that is a recipe for success and for connection. You know, who are you to be entitled and to know? Who are you? Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's path is different.
Exactly.
Everyone's journey to getting there, whatever there is, your goal, is different. So we should be supporting one another. And if we're going to be correcting, we correct in a way that is of support and of love.
Exactly.
That's it. Bottom line. And if sometimes I do see, you know, a young lady sent me a message and she's like, you need to delete this person right now out of the group because she had made a very hurtful comment to a young director who had, you know, posted her site to share with our group to just say, I just made my site and I would love to know your thoughts. And immediately this woman said some very hurtful things, that her site just wasn't good or this and that. And this woman took the initiative to reach out to me and say, we need to delete this woman because she doesn't stand for anything that, you know, this group is about. And then I went and I saw the message, and instead of booting her, I anded her, you know, and I said, I get what you're saying, but let me rephrase that for you, you know, because this does come off as hurtful. And I want to give you an opportunity to, you know, to clear that space and to make anew. And she ended up deleting her comment, and she rewrote a much more supportive comment.
Wonderful.
And that is what I'm about. I don't want to just eliminate, you know, people that aren't speaking the way that our group really should be speaking to each other, you know, in that way of respect and kindness. But give these people an opportunity to reclaim themselves and to actually show support, you know?
I actually was at a leadership seminar, and that's actually what it comes down to, is just your line of communication with each other. Excuse me. Your line of communication and how you can actively express yourself without it being intrusive or, you know, coming off offensive. Because absolutely, I mean, especially if you're vulnerable enough to like share something, that's just a human trait of like, hey, I'm going to share this is what I have to offer. And like, yes, there are different variations and there's different levels, but it also depends on who's receiving that message. And absolutely, that is exactly what you're all about and what you've emulated. I think if, you know, the way you approached that was probably the most elegant way. I'm glad that the actual woman reached out to you and was like, hey, you know, this is what's going on, was brought to your attention. But at the same time, you know, she also came out of a defensive, you know, stature as well. So it was kind of like you just kind of like mediated it and kind of was able to like fix both sides of the fence, and then everyone was able to walk across.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. And with all that being said, I wanted to know how has it been since the whole Me Too movement? Because I know that's not really what inspired starting female filmmakers, obviously.
Sure.
But has that changed anything or altered anything on the page or within, I mean, I know within the industry and us females it has, but have you noticed a difference on the page?
The members of the group are occurring to me to be more bold. I think it's not just the Me Too movement. I think it goes so, like, it's beyond Me Too. It's this energetic shift in our industry. It's been a long time coming. A long time coming. And it's not just our industry. It's every single industry.
Yes.
It's every single industry. And for women to take back their voice is really what's happening. And the group, Female Filmmakers, is just another platform for support, for generating the possibility for us to succeed. That is, I only want the women in our group to succeed. And I want that for every other women in film group out there that I am a member of. I want them to succeed. I wholeheartedly do, but it starts by giving your neighbor a chance.
Absolutely.
It starts by giving your sister a chance. It really does. And to really tame your reactions, because we react to everything, every little thing before we see the full evolution of it. Instead, what I am offering is that we sit back and just, let it brew and see what happens. And I have found just in my own personal work and in my own personal journey that when I sit back and just observe before I say something, it's so much more effective. It's so much more effective. And I get to see it really, I get to see it drawn out before I step in, Very similarly to how I dealt with that woman. I'm not going to react. Yeah, what she said was not cool. But I want to give her an opportunity. I really believe that people can transform.
Now, with saying that,
yeah,
okay, I've noticed there's a different on set sometimes.
Yeah,
especially when things started coming out. It was like men especially were walking on eggshells. I mean, and I've seen and heard stories where women would randomly get text messages or emails or whatever saying like, hey, by the way, if I ever offended you, I'm so sorry.
Amazing.
Wow.
But that's exactly what it needs to be. At least they're recognizing it and realizing, oh, maybe that's not kosher.
Correct. Wow. But with that being said, now that, not that it's phasing away, but now that things are calming down a bit more, I've noticed that there's some people that are still arrogant with it, some men, where they don't correct themselves or they think, I'm above it. This isn't going to affect me. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. And they'll still say certain things or do certain things or their behaviors a certain way. Also, I think it's part of the problem where it's a mesh because we do establish family within our filming teams.
Sure.
Because you start filming, working with the same people.
Sure.
So then it becomes a comfort thing, right? And then the line gets blurred and it's kind of like people get too comfortable. And I think that's part of the issue. And I think that it's a little bit of that and a little bit of arrogance that I've noticed. So sometimes the women don't realize it either. And it's not necessarily that it's wrong, but it's okay to step up and say something. And I think that's part of the problem because they're afraid that they're going to lose something if they do. And it's something that I've always wanted to ask someone what your thoughts are on that, because I've seen it. I've seen it where, oh, well, this happened, but should I stop working with this person? And then they start getting upset because they don't want to stop working with that person because they want to make the income, or we're friends now on set, or we're family on set. And I'm saying like, yeah, but they're not respecting you anymore because that line got blurred because now you become a family,
Right.
if you will. You know, so it's one of those things where I like to know where the separation should start and how things should
Sure.
be, because there has to be professionalism. There's got to be respect, because you're not family. You know, if God forbid I end up in the hospital, I seriously doubt those people are gonna be on my
show up.
side. Exactly. You know, if it's trending on social media that I'm in the hospital, there may be like, hey, thoughts and prayers, because I work with her. But other than that, not a second thought, to be honest. So I want to know from your standpoint, because you come from a different point of view, and I love that, and it's very true, and it's very pure. Okay, so I want to know what your thoughts on that is for other people that might be listening, that might be going through the same thing, because I'm noticing the shift, and it's starting to go back up.
Right. Well, again, I live by the distinction of anding as opposed to but, you know? And listen, not everyone you're going to be working with is going to be your family or your best friend. And humans are at fault. They're not perfect.
Exactly.
You know? And I've been on sets before, of course, where the male may have not necessarily said something to me, but to another woman on set that just does not fly with me. And I will pull that person. I will first check in with the woman, you know. I have a pretty good handle on myself. So, like, I know how to, like, tune people out.
Right.
Because I'm up to bigger things, and we all are.
Right.
You know, I don't need to, like, if I have to take a second and, like, tune in and go in and just be like, yo, what's up? Like, let's have a conversation about this.
Right.
But if I see another woman on set who is having a difficult time, I will absolutely check in with her. It's a non-negotiable. Because as a filmmaker, as a director, and this is to all directors out there, you are responsible for your crew. You are responsible for the energy that you're bringing to set every day, because the energy you bring is going to depend. Your product depends on that energy, 100%. And I that's just the kind of person I am, like, it to a fault. Like, I have to make sure that every single department, I've shaken their hands, I've asked them how they are, I connect with them on something other than just the film, you know, and that really, that creates a line of mutual respect, you know, and I'm also really particular with who I bring onto set as well. You know, you have to keep that space safe and sacred. You are creating art. You're telling a story, whatever it is, whether it's a commercial or a PSA or a film or a short or whatever it is. Like, you're telling a story through images, you know?
Exactly.
So if I do see a young woman and she is put in an uncomfortable situation, I will absolutely confront whoever it is, whether it's a man or a woman. You know, you don't know. You really don't know. And I will just check in and just say, what's up? I really want to know where that intention was coming from. And let's just clear it and complete it and move on, because you're wasting my time.
Exactly.
Done. You know,
Yeah.
that's it.
No, that's how it should be. And I should say that if anyone listening would like to call in or have any questions for Sophia, you're free to call in, because I know we're here sitting talking and it's great. But I want to say that, just put it out there. You guys are free to call in. The number here to call in is 818-602-4929. And do you have anything?
I would just say the number again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. 818-602-4929. I said that too quickly, huh? So, I mean, that's great, though, that that's a good way of looking at it, because I was not glad, but let me rephrase this. When this whole Me Too started up, and it's not just about that, like you said, it's about everything as a whole. I mean, pay equality, it's everything.
Ugh, everything.
So, everything.
Race.
It's everything. And it's all coming up now. And that I was glad, because it's about time.
Yeah.
But
time's up.
Exactly. Time's up. Exactly. So, but with that being said, that's part of the reason why I also get nervous when I do see something or hear stories from other experience of people on set where I'm noticing it's died down now. It's kind of like, okay, I think that some people are thinking the phase is going away. Now I can phase back to being who I was, or my behavior can go back to what it is, you know, and it's not necessarily like on a sexual basis. It could also be bullying, because I've seen that as well, where, and it not just to the females, I've seen, you know, to other men, and you could tell the other person is super uncomfortable, but they don't know what to say because of fear of a job, and that's unfortunate. You know, I've seen it where this guy could like feels like, what do I do? Like, I just take it, and you could just see his demeanor, everything changes, and it's the saddest thing to witness. And especially if there's nothing, because if I'm not someone that's in charge, even if I go and say, hey, are you okay, like, you know, you don't listen to him or whatever, that's just me, but that doesn't mean it's going to stop, because even if I go to someone else, then yeah, they might not call me, but at least I knew I did something. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And that's what I've been seeing, and that's a fear that I have right now, that people are going to think this is phasing out.
Right.
So I was just recently on a set, DPing, and so a producer, when we wrapped out the show, just said, hey, you know, I just wanted to ask you something. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he was just like, I have 2 daughters, one that is in the film industry. She's a freshman. She's going to school. You being a female, you being in this industry, you know, with this whole Me Too movement, like, is that really, are you still feeling that, or have you ever felt that kind of presence on set? And I said, well, I mean, there are some comments that happen. I was like, you know, and there's one of 2 ways that you can handle it, which is, you know, before Me Too, which was like a, oh yeah, haha, laugh it off, or there's a, you know, depending on how strong you are, like I feel like we 3 actually are very strong, independent females. Like, if I were to hear a comment, I'd been like, it's not so much appropriate right now. I was like, there are ladies present. So, like, if you want to talk that way, you can talk that way somewhere else. And, like, you know, there is that fear of, which I think is kind of ridiculous, that we have that fear of, like, I'm going to lose my job or I won't be able to work here anymore. But, you know, when is it the right time to voice your opinion on that subject? And to me, it's like, it's better to set it right away, so that way you've drawn a line and you know, hey, there's etiquette, you know. There's a time where I was just like, hey, do you kiss your mother with that mouth? Because, like, I'm female. Think about that. I could be your mom, your sister, your aunt, your daughter. You know, that's something that I do strongly believe in as well, and it's something that we have to cope with as females growing up. You know, it was just interesting that he had asked me that. I have a daughter that's going to be coming into this industry. Are you dealing with any of that? And I go, it's not as bad. And he's like, oh, so it was bad? And I was like, well, I was an electrician first and foremost. So yeah, I heard all the guy talk, but you know, what can you do? So that's exactly what I would say, is I would set the tone, and then that was fine. They weren't being disrespectful to me. It would just be like within earshot, but around me, at least they were very respectful in that manner. But I just told him, I said, you know, as long as she has a strong voice and she knows who she is and she knows the difference between right and wrong, and she can stand up for herself without fear that she will lose the job or the contact, it's just a job. At the end of the day,
it's just a job.
Yes,
so.
you are going to be the one that has to go home and be okay with what you experienced for whatever the day is.
And that's part of the reason why I think the page is so important.
Yeah.
Because that should help eliminate that fear. It's okay to eliminate people in your life, especially if they're toxic. You know, if they're not willing to respect you, then why have them in your life? You know, and it's not worth it. You'll find another job. You'll find another family, or whatever it is that you want to call it. You're doing great this far. You'll do even better without them. And that's how I see it. And sometimes it's a curse, because I am very quick to burn bridges. But that's just, I don't want to waste time. You know, if the respect isn't mutual, I just don't want to waste their time or mine. because we're just sinking each other at that point. You know, and that's how I see it. You know, I'm not sure how you ladies feel, but that's why. Like you're saying, like we're on to bigger and better things.
We're up to bigger things. You know, this movement, thank God that we started before the real like women in film movement began, because it's really disrupted the industry in the last 2 years, 3 years, you know, and the momentum's just going to grow and grow and grow, and we're going to be heard. We are heard. Look at where we are now. You know, we're here doing a podcast for female filmmakers, you know. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This wasn't a possibility 10 years ago.
It's true.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So, of course, we're up to bigger things.
Absolutely. And like just seeing, being on set and just seeing more females, not just in the producing area, directors, DPs, ADs, like across the board. That to me is just showing like, okay, because it wasn't, I don't feel like it was as exposed to females that you could be in these other positions. Like it was not like introduced as an opportunity. Even mentorship, like we didn't have like any exposure to female, for me, another female DP growing up. I didn't see that. It wasn't like, oh, you know, which is fantastic now, because now this shift has happened, and now there are young women that are just like, oh, hey, I didn't know that this is possible. How did you get into this? And like, you know, strong directors also coming up. I mean, now we've got loads of ladies. So it's kind of,
And I do want to add, I've noticed a slight difference, and I hope that it grows, especially with Cine Gear coming up soon. I don't know if anyone goes to that, but you know, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I went with Robin once to an open house. I think it was at a camera house. I'm not going to mention the name, and they invited all the DPs to come, right? And they wanted to introduce some new camera. I think I don't remember what it was. I was just there because I'm a director and writer, so I went with Robin. She's a DP. And we're sitting there, everything's done, and they're saying, how about all the DPs come to the front? If you have any questions, we'd like to meet you. Robin was literally the only female up there. And I was sitting there watching. Hang on. This is the part where it gets really weird. So I'm sitting there watching. She was one of the first up there. They ignored her. They went straight to the men, and all they would do was talk to the men. And she had some serious questions because she had a project coming up, and she was considering using this camera. And they ignored her the entire time. She had to. You finally stepped away, correct?
So I just stepped away. I ended up knowing a contact, and he's like, "Hey, how'd you think? What'd you think?" And I was like, "Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about it, just get like a little more depth and perception into the camera and what the flexibilities were for this project." And he's like, "Yeah, come on over." And you know, like I didn't feel like I didn't want to explode on this guy, but I was just like, hey, you know, I appreciate it, but you know, you might want to talk to your faculty and just say, you know, like you should chat with everybody. I understand that like it's all about who you know, which is fantastic, and I was just coming up, you know, so I didn't really know everyone. I just happened to know the one contact that I knew, and he wasn't there. He just so happened to swing by. And so I was just like, look, I was like, I don't want to make this a big deal. But I do want this to be brought to everyone's attention. You know, I was up there just like everybody else. I get I'm 5'1", I'm a tiny little, you know, person, but, you know, it's what it is. So just make everyone aware that if someone's coming up, that it should be across the board. Or, you know, like instead of there being a line and someone cutting across, you know, I did say something. I was just like, there is a line. And he was just like, oh, yeah, just 1 second. And I was like, oh, okay, great. You know, so it's one of those things where it's like, where do you stand at that one point in time? This is obviously before Me Too, but I feel like when you say something, sometimes it's not valid, and it's unfortunate. You know what I mean? But I feel like if we now have our voices back, then I feel like we are being actually heard, and that to me is volumes. Because before it was just like, oh, yeah, I heard you, but I'm not listening. Now it's like you say something and you're heard. So that right there is the biggest shift. And it's wonderful because, you know, seeing that in my lifetime, which is absurd to say in 2018, that I'm actually seeing the shift of us actually having a voice and being heard and have it valued is beyond me.
Yeah. Well, few things before we wrap up. I want to know, can you tell everyone here listening where they can find you, where they can find female filmmakers, and what you have set for the future, what you plan for the future for female filmmakers?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook, Sophia Kiapos, Kiapos, Sophia. My Instagram is Sophia Kia, Kia, that's it. And then the Female Filmmakers Instagram is at Fem, F-E-M, Filmmakers with an S. Yeah, the Facebook group right now is secret. Okay. So if you would like to join, you can send me an email at sophiakiapos@gmail.com, SOPHIAKIAPOS @gmail.com. And the group is only for women. So I will just say that we have a lot coming up with the group. We're going to be doing our first public event.
Yes, I can't wait.
Yeah,
in
just
a few months. And we're going to be doing it at my family's ranch.
Ooh, awesome.
So it's going to be unlike any other filmmaking mixer event that you've ever been to. You're going to be in the middle of the forest with the mountains and open stars, and it's going to be incredible.
And when's that?
That's going to be in July.
July.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's open for men and women. But we're celebrating female filmmakers, obviously. And we just did our first event with Canon Burbank, which was incredible. We did a work in progress workshop called Almost Finished Workshop, and we had women from our group submit a work in progress film. And the selected ones had their films screened at Canon, and we paired them up with post-production professionals who could help them see their films through to completion. So we're going to be doing that again with Canon. And, we have some exciting things with Sigma coming up.
Nice.
And I'm a Red user. I love Red. So we have some stuff with Red coming up too.
Wow.
Yeah, we're expanding, and we are in over 30 countries.
Wow.
So we have women from all over the world in the group, and I believe and before I forget, every other Thursday, 2 of the female filmmakers from the group host a coffee in Studio City at Aroma Tea and Coffee.
Oh, nice.
Around 2:00, I believe. But we are expanding. We're doing incredible things, and now is the time to get on this bandwagon for sure.
Absolutely.
I have a project that I will be announcing soon for female filmmakers specifically.
Nice.
Which is very, very exciting. And if you would like to send in your works and be featured on the Instagram page, that's also a possibility. So you can just send it through the Instagram page, and we spotlight a different female filmmaker each week, and we share her works and a little bit about who she is, because it's important. All we do, really, we only know our directors by the films that we make. Or they make. Yeah. And they're so much more than directors. Yeah. They are human beings with stories and experiences. And I think that those experiences, if shared, will contribute to encouraging another female director in her career and her path. So
that's great. This is a great way to end it. Thank you, Robin, for helping me out today, my sidekick over here. And then, of course, we couldn't have this show without special, amazing guests like you. Sophia, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that we can have you come back at a later time when we can have updates, or when we get closer to July perhaps. And
for sure, would love that. Yeah.
So thank you all for listening in to Female Filmmakers Fuse. I'm Alexa Polar. I have Robin here, Pabello. And again, thank you, Sophia Kiapos.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
You're listening to Female Filmmakers Fuse with Alexa Poehler, only on LA Talk Radio.